This time we're looking at Christmas Oddities, the one-off specials and things that are not the usual Christmas fare. These are much lesser known than A Christmas Story or The Year Without a Santa Claus. These were produced by the metric ton over the years, and not all of them became famous. Probably the most famous in this class of Christmas show would be Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. It made the leap to a higher level and became part of the public consciousness. These ones probably didn't. First up, we're taking a look at a Christmas movie called Trail of Robin Hood from 1950. A Western starring Roy Rogers that has nothing to do with Robin Hood and could have used a better title. In this one, Roy plays a conservation expert working for the government. His friend, Western hero Jack Holt, is selling Christmas trees simply for the joy of it, to give something back to the kids who made him a star in Hollywood pictures. The big commercial grower doesn't like that, and sets out to put the kibosh on Holt's operation. Roy and a posse of Western heroes set out to right the wrongs and get the trees to market in time for Christmas. So, what makes this special? Well, it's a typical Roy Rogers movie. You know what you're in for. Some Western action, some songs, and some good-natured humor, and some comic relief from these sidekicks here, but this thing has more going for it than just that. In the first place, the special effects, most notably a burning bridge that collapses, came courtesy of the pioneering Lydecker brothers, who almost single-handedly made Republic movie serials larger than life with their large-scale explosions and model effects. We have Roy Rogers and Trigger, of course, and songs from the Riders of the Purple Sage. Jack Holt was a major star in his day, and Chester Gould based the stalwart, square-jawed look of Dick Tracy on Jack Holt. But the real star of this one is the gathering of all the Republic Western heroes who, along with Roy, show up to help their old friend. Alan Rocky Lane, Tom Keene, Monty Hale, Tom Tyler, singer and Western star Rex Allen, Kermit Maynard, and Ray Crash Corrigan are all on hand. One of my favorite moments is when perennial baddie George Cheesebro turns up to help, and this kid says, "Hey, I know you. You're always a meanie." And he replies, "Well, I know, little girl, but after doing 20 pictures with Jack Holt, he reformed me." This is a treat if you like classic B-movie westerns and Roy Rogers pictures. Amazon doesn't have it available on Prime, so I had to look elsewhere. It's been put out on DVD, but I don't have a copy, so the best I could do was look on YouTube. Unfortunately, as you can tell, the prints I found were kinda low res, but it's still worth tracking down. It really is. Next, we have a science fiction epic. Well, okay, it's just a half-hour kid show. This one is a French-Canadian production called The Christmas Martian from 1971. So it's close to Christmas, and these kids are going home from school or whatever, and they stop into this store to shoplift. That is, to buy some groceries. That's when this guy turns up. He's a spaceman. You can tell because he wears macrame pants. Now, he goes into the store as well and starts making a mess and steals some stuff. The cops are called in, but, well, they're kinda useless. The town is all in an uproar, and even the local media doesn't know what to say. The spaceman, he disguises himself and flies around like Mary Poppins using this anti-gravity rod that poses as a road flare. Then the kids go out to chop down the family Christmas tree and run into this spaceman again. So they track him, and the little girl finds this road flare anti-gravity rod and flies around for a while. Eventually they find the spaceman's flying saucer and make friends with him. Turns out he's harmless. He just needs to repair his ship and return to Mars so he can spend Christmas with his kids. See, he's actually an adult, but you wouldn't know that based on his goofy personality. There's some fast motion and other antics posing as comedy throughout. The Christmas Martian is really strange, and unfortunately, as you can see, the processing on this print is as terrible as the spaceman's costume, so all the whites are blown out so far, you can't tell what's going on in some of the shots. I want to give this thing some credit, though. Yes, it's dopey as all get out, but it looks like they were really trying to make some sort of effort despite their minuscule budget. The saucer is interesting. I'm not sure what this was originally, maybe part of a ride at a fairground, or the awning of some kind of pavilion, or maybe even part of a public playground set. A town could buy stuff like this, along with jungle gyms and slides and things for a playground. It's obviously made out of metal and is sturdy enough they can lift it on a cable and people can climb on it. That's one of the things that doesn't work, though. The ship is obviously way too small for the interior we see, and it's not like it's a TARDIS or anything, so it really breaks the illusion when we see how small it really is. But it looks good design-wise, and these interiors are pretty good too, given what they had to work with. And they obviously had access to some sort of crane they could use, not only to lift the saucer, but to use it as a flying rig for the characters. I mean, look, this kid is actually suspended way above the ground. I was impressed. For ultra-low budget, the effect looked good. As you can tell, this is pretty cheesy, but it might be fun to watch at least once if you enjoy chunky stuff now and then. Finally, we have Santa's Christmas Circus, starring Whizzo the Clown, from 1966. With a name like Whizzo, you might think this clown was going around making yellow snow, but that's not the case. No. Whizzo the Clown was the brainchild of Frank Wiziarde. Whizzo was a local children's television host in Kansas City, Missouri. See, back in the day, TV stations had to fill time, and thanks to a mandate from the FCC, they had to have a certain portion of their broadcast day reserved for children's programming. So in 1954, a station in Kansas City decided they needed a kids show, and as luck would have it, an employee of the station, Wiziarde, had previously worked as a clown in a family circus and invented Whizzo, and Whizzo's Wonderland came into being. Give this guy some credit. He had to write, direct, and act in this show for an hour a day, 5 days a week, for years. And not only that, but he had kids appear on the show who were not actors, and he was basically herding cats to keep them engaged and get them to do what they were supposed to do. He used magic tricks and pratfalls and kept up a running patter of gags and jokes, most of which, no doubt, were over the heads of the audience of kids, but parents would get a chuckle out of it. What you see Wiziarde doing is vaudeville. In fact, he got his start in vaudeville as a child performer in the 1920s. Christmas Circus is an hour-long culmination of Whizzo's show in color with a group of kids from a local dance school. It may be all that exists of Whizzo's show today, I don't know, but this is early TV as it used to be, and it's very simple. The camera is more or less locked down on a wide shot. There are cutaways to pre-recorded film of animatronic Christmas displays in downtown shops, and they ride a magic carpet to the North Pole to meet Santa. And look there, that's a Fred Flintstone toy. That's an early Flintstone toy. The magic Whizzo does is mostly down to editing. Like, he has this magic curtain he steps behind. There's an obvious jump cut, and then he emerges from the other side in a different costume. Later, he makes his atomic time machine viewer appear the same way. To us today, these tricks are obvious, but back in the day, it was real magic. This mandated time set aside for children's programming is where Whizzo the Clown and Buffalo Bob and Howdy Doody came from. It sort of led to the movie hosts like Svengoolie and Elvira, and yes, even Mystery Science Theater. Ironically, they razzed this Whizzo special on riff tracks. There was a creative engine at the bigger local stations which just doesn't exist anymore. The original children's block was replaced by cheaper fare, G.I. Joe and Transformers cartoons, which were basically a commercial to sell toys. Still cool, sure, but they were meant to sell toys. On YouTube, I found this news report from the 1980s looking back at Whizzo. They interview Wiziarde and several people who watched the Whizzo show as kids. They said Whizzo was a friend. That word kept coming up. And how they wish their kids had something like the Whizzo show to watch. For us today, Christmas Circus might seem boring or dull, but there's just something about it. Today we have the internet and 50,000 channels, but nothing's on. These days, kids aren't allowed to be kids, especially if Twitter has anything to say about it. Dopey as this is, Whizzo comes from a simpler time when things were more innocent and less cynical, and a kid could still be a kid and have imagination and a sense of wonder. And isn't that part of what Christmas is all about? You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.